This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm sorry to start off or continue your Sunday on such a macabre note, but that is the way of things out here on the Sunset Safari, and dangling a fifth of impala, means that there is a leopard somewhere below it. Good afternoon, my name is Jamie. Behind the camera is Gendre, and we're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. If you have any questions for us, you can send them through using the hashtag safariLIVE on Twitter, alternatively in the chat section of YouTube. Now, this was found by James and Sebastian this morning on drive, this impala carcass, and underneath it was the queen herself, the lovely Tundi, who I haven't seen in so long that I simply had to come and visit her this afternoon. But she's not in the tree, as far as I can see, which I think might mean that she is behind the termite mound in the shade. It's warm this afternoon, even though the wind has continued. You know how I feel about wind blowing. She has probably moved into the shade. It's 30 degrees centigrade, so 86 Fahrenheit. It's warm. After our cold front, let's just do a little loop-de-loop round here and see where she is. Project Alpha says that this is a massive scotia. Not only is it a massive scotia, but it's a massive scotia that I've been dying to see a leopard kill in. I know that other people have, but like the Jackalberry on Gowrie Cutline, it's been one of those things where I always wanted to see a leopard in it, and I never have. Even when Hosanna and Shongile spent a lot of time around this area, Karula used to use the scotia all the time. Somehow, I was never the one to be here when there was a kill there. It's ridiculous. But it's just one of those things. Yeah, all the senses tingling. Tundi, where are you? Why are you not where I thought you would be? But it's a beautiful scotia. For those of you who don't know what a scotia is, it is a boerbean, or a weeping boerbean in this case, to be more precise. There's actually hardly any meat left on this thing. I hope she hasn't left it. Now, weeping boerbean is so named because in the summer months, or in the spring months, it produces these beautiful red flowers which produce a vast amount of nectar, which drips down and makes it look as though it is weeping. Imagine this impala would be weeping if it could, but it can't. Where's my leopard? I'm going to go search for my leopard. While I search for my leopard, let's head across to Steve so he can say hello.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my vehicle. My name is Steve Fulgrimage, joined by Sebastian Rombi on camera, and I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday wherever you are in the world. Now, as you know, Jamie's out. She's looking for Tundi. We are having a few vehicle issues. So we're going to take this car back to go and swap out with Wendy. It's having a bit of a timing issue with the accelerator. I don't know myself. There's computers inside these cars. I don't understand them myself. And something can be slightly off in that computer. It's a sensor saying I need fuel, and then it takes fuel away, and I'm not doing anything. This is the car, the mind of its own, like that movie Ghost in the Machine. It's just getting worse and worse. It wasn't too bad when we started. Now it's getting worse. And Kirsty's saying I shouldn't blame the car. A good workman never blames his tools, of course. But when the car just decides to stall, I mean, I'm not that bad a driver. Not that bad a driver at all, but... Hey, there we go. Still catching. So we're going to take this back. I think our mechanic is nearby. I saw him earlier. Maybe he'll be able to have a look at it. And then when we swap our cars and we see each other again, sorry, Seb, I'll tell you what we're going to get up to on this very warm, windy afternoon. The warm front is back. Terribly sorry, Jamie's going to have to hold the show while Marcel sorts out something to get us on the other vehicle. And in the meantime, let's go back over to Jamie, see if she's having any luck finding Thandi.
That's okay, Steve. Happens to all of us. Shame, man. I actually feel a little bit guilty. It's terribly frustrating when you get all set up for afternoon drive and then you discover that something that was working perfectly fine in the morning all of a sudden doesn't work anymore. So there's nothing that can be done. We'll just have to switch around and see. I don't know what the problem is there. I'm driving at a snail's pace. I could definitely walk faster than this. Not because my car is doing anything bad, but because I have a feeling that Thandi isn't far away. She's just flat as a pancake. Flat, fat, well-fed. The only other option is that she's gone for a drink. Or, no, man. Please tell me those are not human tracks from now. No, they're not. I thought these were from earlier today, which would explain her absence, because she would have got up and moved away. And that would have made me very upset indeed. Just checking carefully here for her. Under any one of these guarri bushes. The thing about where she's put her kill is she doesn't have to worry too much about it. Nothing's going to come and steal it from there. So she could actually be lying quite a distance away. It's windy today. She's not in the tree. Check the tree. And I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that she hasn't been to the Djuma Dam camp to drink. Because she's got two options. Treehouse, which is marginally closer, or going towards of.EDT Dam, which has obviously got a little bit more water. Treehouse is very limited. And it's basically just mud puddles. But maybe we should take a little trip, if we don't get lucky here, take a little trip to Treehouse. I don't know that she would have left the carcass yet. There's still a little bit of meat. Apparently there was a leopard herd there. No, never mind, Chris says. I don't know what. I didn't hear a leopard today. I'm sure she's here somewhere, fast asleep. Oh, an elephant herd. Oh, but it was in Coral. Never mind. Alright, we've done full-on broken telephone. It was an elephant herd. It's my favorite thing about the afternoons when people call in updates. And usually what happens is people start to get going in the afternoon around about the same time, but usually they switch their radios on within sort of 5-minute intervals of each other. Meaning that you get, afternoon stations, can I have an update please? And then somebody gives an update, and 5 minutes later somebody goes, afternoon stations, can I have an update please? And then it's given again, and then 5 minutes later, and so on. But what so often happens is that the updates given tend to vary quite wildly in their location and details. It's highly entertaining. People turn into other people. This morning, James became Steve. Locations. If someone's following up on tracks, it'll be completely the wrong direction, wrong place. No Thandi there. Let's go have a look at Treehouse. She might have gone for a drink. She probably would have cut through here. So we shouldn't, in theory, see her tracks here. Because there's so many nice wide game paths that it would be more likely that she would use this route, that route through. Oh, we've just missed her and she's lying flat underneath a bush. Bookish, what? Sorry, girl? Bookish, what, girl? Sorry, bookish somebody, girl. I've missed out the middle part of your name. You want to know if these are cars that you put gas in, or if they are like... Oh, Bookish Horse Girl. Bookish Horse Girl wants to know if these are cars like golf carts, or are they cars that one puts gas in? They are cars that one puts gas in, although we would call it petrol out here. So we put petrol in these cars. There are some safari vehicles that are run off diesel, and then there are some vehicles that are have recently been introduced into the mix that are electric, but we do not have electric vehicles. So these are actually surprisingly quiet petrol vehicles, certainly compared to the clunky monsters of the Masai Mara. These are an absolute joy to drive around in. But yeah, they are cars that you have to put, and in fact I did this afternoon. I had to, and I'm still feeling a bit weak and wobbly, so that jerry can really didn't feel particularly pleasant today. Tundi, this is just part of how my luck is going at the moment. Although I had a really nice morning this morning. For those of you who missed it, we had the Djuma clan on a waterbuck kill. And although we only caught them towards the end of that feeding session, it's really, really interesting interactions between the clan males, which I found fascinating. I thought it was absolutely awesome. Okay, quick check round treehouse. I'm faintly concerned that those tracks came. I'm faintly concerned that those tracks actually were fresh. Darcy wants to know whether or not Hosana would be able to get up to Tundi's kill. Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I was so desperate to come this afternoon to Tundi's kill was I had a suspicion, and it could well still play out, that Hosana could show up. He's been around. He has been looking hungry, and as we know, he's not above scavenging. So just like any other leopard, there's not really any way that a leopard can protect their kill from another leopard unless it's purely based on intimidation and size. So like poor Tlalamba and her hard-won impala kill. Ooh, I wouldn't want to drink there. There would be not much that Tundi could do if Hosana came to steal from her. Yum, that looks appealing. I don't think there's anything drinkable there from this morning till now. It's just mud. What was your bet with Tristan Gendre? You've won. Gendre says he has won his bet with Tristan, which apparently means that Tristan has to go rolling around in the mud. Which I will possibly eat my own hat if that happens. I'm not going to make any bets about it, though. Ugh. That is not Tundi, that is a dove.
Sure.
Yes, pretty sure. 90% sure that that is not a leopard. No, you're welcome. Kirst says thanks for clarifying. People were quite confused. Now it is gone, and we are left with just a very unattractive dried mud wallow. Oh dear, I hope the rains come early this year. I really do. I also hope my leopard comes back to her carcass. I will be quite disappointed if she does not. In fact, I will almost take it personally. Let's do a loop-de-loop around the area. I'm not 100% convinced that she isn't there somewhere. Let's go back, have another look, and then go on a drive around and see where she's gone. There's just so many potential shady spots for her to go and hide in. We've spoken about this before. If there are certain animals that are really good at hide and seek and others that are not. And leopards, as it happens, are probably the champions of it. Tanya wants to know whether or not, on a more general note, the migration comes through Djuma. And the answer to that is no. It doesn't, at least not the great migration of East Africa with the wildebeest and the zebra and the Thompson's gazelle. And that's just because of the nature of the resources, the number of animals there. It is a migration system that is isolated to that area, and it goes on all year round as the animals circle that ecosystem. Here in South Africa, we did used to have apparently an enormous migration of a type of antelope known as a springbuck. Now, you won't see springbuck here. We're a little bit too far to the north and to the east of the country to see springbuck. You would see springbuck more in the slightly more arid areas. But the records, historical records, suggest that at one point in the country's history, there were millions upon millions of springbuck that would thunder across the country, and people would have to build barricades so as not to get caught up in the migration itself. It would have been astounding to witness. And unfortunately, it is something that does not happen anymore in South Africa. And there's one very clear reason behind that, and that is fences. The whole migration route was slowly but steadily parceled up into little bits of land. And so it was that we killed, and I say we, obviously this was quite a while ago, a little bit before my generation, but in essence, we as a human species killed off an entire migration that was as large as the East African one, which is deeply sad. There are, of course, migrations of other types of things. You know, there's migrations of bats, massive bat migrations that happen elsewhere. And we get certain migratory species of bird, but no, not in the numbers that you experience in East Africa. Pronghorns. Although Steve's intention was to switch out vehicles, he hasn't needed to, because Opa, our fabulous mechanic, gave Jigger a very serious, very hard talking to, and now she's working again.
Well, we've managed to go into the pits, and we're not as fast as the Formula One racing car pit drivers, but we managed to get Opa. He was there. He's our mechanic, and he actually washed the engine this morning, Jigger's engine, and all he did was just take an air hose, high pressure hose, and just blow everything a bit, and there we go. Got water off of the airflow sensor. That was causing that weirdness of the it stopped now, as you can see. There wasn't a computer, it was just a little bit of water on the airflow sensor. So this is interesting. So I want to try find out where Ridgenose has been keeping her cubs, and there's a lot of tracks coming in and out of this block to the right, as well as a giant pile of scat with a lion track there. So Ridgenose, the lioness, was seen this morning right up in the north, sort of, or should I say the northeast of Djuma. But she was around here yesterday with James last night. It is a very fuzzy poo. Lions, they don't have time to pluck the fur from the food they eat, and they just ingest the entire thing. And a leopard poo can look quite similar, but it's never as big as that, of course. Lots and lots of fur. Sometimes if you have the willingness to dig in there with a stick, never use your fingers, everybody. You will ingest certain parasites that you do not want to ingest. But if you just to see the contents, you'll often find especially if a pride has been eating as a pride, you'll often find lots and lots of bone as well as fur. Sometimes even hoof and tooth. That all comes out. Okay, so I'm quite certain that she's probably got her cubs somewhere in this block. But obviously without Mum around, I was even chatting with Rexon just now. There's no point walking in. We don't want to risk the cubs. We don't want to risk them running. But they're probably in there somewhere. I'm just going to do a little loop around, see if maybe she's come back from that side. And maybe we find her. Maybe she takes us to the teddy bear cubs. Otherwise, I would like to find some elephants today. Elephants would be nice. It's nice and windy. It's quite warm. So who knows, we might get them moving about. Uh-oh, don't start your nonsense again, Jigger. Don't start your... Oh. Shiva, 10 out of 10 content. Thank you very much. Yesterday afternoon, I was actually set up with a lion scat and a lion track to break it up and disassemble it for you. But then our technical issues, see there's another lioness track coming out of here. But our technical issues provided us that we ran out of time, but I was standing out in the wilderness for the longest time. I decided, let me go find a leopard. And by the time you came to us, we had Hosanna. But it was just a technical issue. So I was going to break up a lion poo for yesterday, but today I'm not. So another lion track coming out of there, not that fresh, but when I had the tracks the other day of the cubs, they were coming in and out of here and then had them closer towards the gate. So it's possible she's moved them into this very, very inaccessible drainage line north of Gallego Pan. There's a few vehicle tracks going in here. You'd wonder if they've followed lionesses in. But we're not just going to blindly drive in. We will see if we can find her this afternoon. It's probably going to be a bit later. So we're going to do a little bit of a loop around. She might have moved already this morning, all the way back. She might have come all the way back, and a lot of you are keen to see the cubs. So am I. Very lucky on our first day to have found them. But that I think has got to do with a tree. Oh no, tracks going in. Lion tracks coming out. Were you guys in here yesterday, Seb? Is this where you got stuck?
Yeah, here's the stump where we got stuck.
Okay, there's the stump. You're going to regale the story. Did it come up this morning?
No, actually.
No, it didn't come up. Well, I won't regale it then. But off-roading, sometimes you can find yourself on stumps that require a little bit more effort to get yourself off of. I think James followed Ridgenose into this section yesterday, and then she went all the way that side because the rest of the pride is on that side. So I think she's looking for some assistance when it comes to hunting. She will hunt on her own for sure, but I think she's also quite keen to get some assistance, because when you do have help, you do have more luck. He was calling yesterday. I was watching last night that very strange call. She started off by warming up her voice, warming up her voice box before properly giving her call to the night. And no doubt that was answered, and she knew where her family was, and off she went to join them, although she didn't find them. A very cool way to close the show. Love it when Tingana or one of the lions calls like that for us right at the credits. Isn't that always the best? As if he's been waiting the whole day. How many times have we waited with lions and evokers especially, and they just sit there and you're like, just give us one. One for the show, everybody. Okay, so I'm just going to go around here, go up towards the north, around this block, see if there's any sign of cubs crossing out, or at least that lioness heading back. As Jamie was talking about the masters of hide and seek being leopards. Well, cubs are very good at hiding as well. And I think, actually, apart from the chameleon, little scrub hares are extremely good at playing hide and seek. Well, what about night jars as well? They're also pretty good. Okay. Well, we're going to head up the road here, see what we can come across. In the meantime, let's head you back over to Jamie, who I think is still looking for Tandy.
Nightjars are pretty good at peekaboo when it comes to games they play in the bush, especially at night when they fly up as you drive past them, and then they fly back into the road in front of you, and up and back into the road in front of you, and so on. I've left Tundi. There's actually another vehicle there who's content to sit and wait and see whether or not she comes back. So I've left the very kind gentleman there, and I've come to do a loop around, and I've seen a herd of impala that she would have seen quite clearly from that boerbean. In fact, quite possibly the same herd of impala that she snatched that poor dangling victim from a couple of days ago. And it's not unknown for any leopard to have multiple kills at one point in time, and with Tundi, that once upon a time used to be a given, especially during the rut. I was just saying that I've seen her with 3 dead impala in one go. Male impala, adult male impala, a couple of years ago. So she is not above getting a meal after her snack. I suppose it's a sort of leopard equivalent of having one's cake and eating it as well. You know, an impala in the tree and one in the mouth. Kimberly, you want to know how far a leopard will go from its kill, and to be honest, it's a difficult question to really answer. I don't know why we always say to be honest, because obviously we're always honest with you, but we can't help it. It's just one of those phrases that slips in. Drag mark. I see a mark. I do see a mark, actually. That is true. I wouldn't have put it as fresh, but maybe if Bernie came around and drove here, is there any tracks on the side of it? This is hers. But is this not hers from that other impala? Or are we missing something here? It goes straight in the direction of where that impala is. I'll show you now what I'm talking about. Sorry, just let me get a rough idea as to just how fresh this was. I don't know if this mark was here this morning. Looks like people have driven over it, not just me. Sorry, this is really yucky to try and look at it in this light. Not convinced that this wasn't from a different side, or from that impala that we were looking at before, but just give me one moment. I'm going to jump out. Let's just check I'm not going to walk straight into her. I've done that before many a time, getting out to look at tracks. Let's see which way this goes. Doves have walked on it, which is to be expected this time of day. There's a squirrel shouting. She's dragged it this way. See how this blade of grass here was sitting like this, and it's ended up here. The squirrel calling as well. And this, I wonder if she didn't hunt that herd of impala. Here's her tracks here. Ooh, they're so faint. She must have been pulling it over her footprints. I think Tundi might have another kill. But if she does, it happened just after morning drive, because a lot of things have walked over this. Hey. And the grass is blown over it. Go have a look-see. She must have been dragging it over her tracks. I'm just going to get a clear idea of the direction that it's going in before I start driving in afterwards. While I do that, I'm going to send you across to Steve. I'm sorry, I'm squinting at you. The light's really bright. Let's go see what he's looking for.
Well, good luck, Jamie. It wouldn't surprise me if Tundi's got another kill. She is an expert huntress. Probably one of the most successful leopardesses I've ever seen with regards to hunting. She always got something whenever you, well, almost when you find her, she's got something. Well, we've just been checking around this block and seeing, spotted something over there. You know, the termite mounds, always good to look on top of them. Always good to have a look and see. Often a leopard sitting on top, as you recall. This time of year, just the slightest change in a termite mound. If your eyes think there's something there, it's always worth having a little look. Hello, English Rose. You want to know what the most hair-raising experience I've ever had on drive? I suppose one of the most hair-raising I had was when I was actually training students, and I had one of the students driving the car. It's always tricky when you've got someone driving and you're not in control. I've got a lot of experience in the car, a lot of experience with animals. And we were driving in a reserve with the student driving. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and we heard something come out of the bushes, and that area's got black rhino in it. I remember this. It's probably not the most hair-raising, but it's still a funny story. And the student panicked. I told him drive, because normally at night, it was dark, we couldn't see. Normally at night, if something the size of an elephant or a rhino decides to chase your car, it's best to just drive away, because you can't see what else is there, or you can't really see the behavior. So it's best, especially if you're driving, to keep driving. But we heard something, he stopped and he stalled. And most people who drive cars, before you've driven a Land Rover like this, know that the key is on the right-hand side here. There's a Land Rover, it's here on the left. And so he stalled the car. And I remember the students in the back going, "It's big, it's coming." And needless to say, everybody on the car was terrified. We managed to get the car started and we drove away. He drove away a little bit faster than I would have liked, but it was quite hair-raising because I wasn't in control of the car. It turned out to be black rhino that had charged us with the calf. We found the tracks the next day. But you know, the black rhino can do a bit of damage to your car if it does catch up with you. But rhinos normally they chase things if you run away. But at night it's better to just move if you do hear something. So English Rose, that's one story. There are many more. I suppose you get more hair-raising stories on foot though, because on foot you don't have the ability to drive away. So the safety element that you have, you normally have a little bit more confidence in a vehicle. You normally go a little close, or maybe into sightings you wouldn't on foot. But it's important to be able to read behavior of animals. And is this elephant showing signs of being aggressive, or is this lion showing signs of being aggressive? And if they are, it's best to just steer clear. There are lots of lions that sort of aren't as relaxed out in the world as they are here in the Kruger or in the Sabi Sands. And I've had lions mock charge cars before out of nowhere. It's just a lion that really doesn't know what you are, and in a little bit of a relationship with a lady at the time who's quite relaxed because she knew the car, but the male didn't know who we were, and we were a threat to his bride or his consort at the time. I've been charged a couple times by lions in the car, and it doesn't matter how many times that happens. It is very unnerving. An enormous animal moving towards you at a breathtaking speed. big male lion, but male lions generally run with a little bit of falseness in them. They run with their legs straight, so they're almost stopping as they come. A lioness with cubs who's aggressive, generally a little bit more defensive. What is that, Seb, on the floor?
Old scat.
Old scat. Is that more leopard size, like?
Or lion size.
Lion, a bit bloody, a bit more blood though. Okay, hard to tell really. Scat is scat, and that one looks like it's very black, which indicates that it's probably from either a leopard or a lion at the early stages when there's lots of blood eaten. The one with the fur, almost when you can imagine the fur and the meat on inside the stomach, the fur sort of floats on top and it eventually comes out. But when this is an 8 out of 10 for content, thanks Kirsty. But when there's a lot of blood, you'll often find lions when they've had, say, a buffalo or giraffe. The first few stools that they have are quite often very bloody, very messy. And then after a day or so, you get that really hairy sort of poo like we saw earlier. But it can be quite gross when you're around a lion, around a kill zone, and lions are just depositing that on the floor. Especially when, or you happen to make the mistake and put one of your wheels in it. Even more shocking when you see the hooded vultures land on the floor and consume that. Because they're not going to get anything from the lions. They decide to come and enjoy at least something that's very protein rich. It's quite revolting. Vultures. Richard, yuck indeed. Even talking about it makes me a little bit ill. And our cam-ups are very good at framing up when our lion and leopard are having a poo. Very good at getting right in there and catching that magical moment. I always have to look away. Always have to look away because it just doesn't sit well with me. Got no problem with antelope and vegetarian droppings or dung, but when it comes to what we were talking about. Now let's change the subject, shall we? It is a nice warm and sunny day and the wind is blowing. Tundi might have made another kill. We're checking our northern boundary, see if we can maybe find some activity of the mother ridge nose coming back to her cubs. I'm going to slowly make my way to where I believe they were last seen. Seb was there this morning, so he does know. Buvasuk Dam. It's by the quarry, I believe, somewhere. Okay, well, anyway, you were there. We'll go and have a look. Okay, well, Jamie has had her nose to the ground. She's trying to figure out what is going on in that area. Let's go see if she's managed to unravel the mystery.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and there's fresh blood on the side of the road where I think that Tundi killed another impala. I'm just trying to figure out where it is. Afternoon, Rex. I've come to follow up on Tundi. She's not here, but it looks like she's killed another mala. There's a drag mark on Pangolin Track Road that I'm just trying to follow up on. Right, sorry, did Kirsty ask you a question there? Or no, she didn't. She's here somewhere. I want to get off, but I can't. I'm certain that she's here. I'll show you the patch of blood in a moment. I just don't want to keep driving over that drag mark and obscure where it goes. Somewhere here. Why has she dragged it so far? I do not know. Why did she move it away from her other kill? Unless what she's thinking of is actually moved. I've got the direction wrong. That's what I'm thinking. Ramona wants to know if she would hang multiple kills in the same tree, and I'm thinking she doesn't want to waste one at the expense of the other. So she might start dragging that kill back towards that other kill and had to stop and rest for a bit. The only thing is it doesn't match up with the drag mark, because there's the patch of blood. There's a short drag mark, a patch of blood, and then a long drag mark in this direction. And Rexon's on his way. The reason I'm tempted to, with two of us, it's really difficult because I need to actually get off and walk, because she's here somewhere. But I don't want to, while I'm chatting away to you and not concentrating, actually make a mess of things, because I can't do both. So hopefully with Rex coming to help us, then we'll get there's Impala here. People tracks again. And it's alright, Chris, it's not a problem. We'll just be careful. I'll just be careful in how I'm doing things. And if I'm a bit distracted, then don't mind me. It's because I am concentrating on where she's gone. So I'll take you quickly to show you the patch of blood while I try and figure this one out. She's gone there. Straight in here. Why did she go in here? That doesn't make sense to me. Just doesn't make sense. Don't know. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. She must be just here, under one of these weeping wattles. The track goes like... Where does it go? Oh, Nikita, the reason she would make 2 kills is quite simply because she is an opportunist like all leopards, meaning that, you know, if there's the option for an extra meal, then why not take it? You never know when your next meal is coming from. So the fact that a leopard has 1 kill doesn't mean that they're going to pass up the opportunity to have another at any point. They're going to want to have as many options on their menu as they can. And we've seen it with quite a few leopards, actually, that they will kill even though they already have a kill. And that kill was a little impala. It's nearly finished. Why would she bring it here? There's nothing to hoist here. Maybe I've got the direction of this drag wrong. Don't know how, but maybe I have. Why would she bring it here? Ruse says that they feel like they're watching a detective show. Maybe one of those detective comedy where the bumbling detective eventually gets it right by pure luck. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. This drag comes all the way here. Why? Why would she take it here? There is, of course, the possibility that it was another leopard, but it's her tracks. I mean, it's a female's tracks. It's not a male's tracks. So, I also think if it had been another leopard, we would have seen that other kill gone as well, because there's a good chance they would have found it there. It could be Tlalamba, of course, with female leopard tracks. I don't particularly think that I can tell the difference between Tandi's tracks and Tlalamba's tracks. I can't. I'll have to go back onto the road. So frustrating. That blood is wet. There's Rex. Ha ha. We are saved by somebody who actually has a tracker with him, which will help immensely. I'm going to go talk to Rex. While I do, I'm going to send you across to Steve for an update as to what he's up to.
Yes, well, it's always great when Rex and Mike turn up there. Always nice to have a second opinion. I mean, with more time, we are able to find these things, but sometimes you just can't get off the vehicle for long enough. It's always nice when you have some assistance, and Rexon is an expert tracker. He sees things that we just don't see. Okay, well, feels like a detective show indeed sometimes. The art of tracking is, they reckon, how we developed our scientific mind. So if you think of any detective, a detective is one who takes things and discerns information from them. He deduces. I mean, what is the famous deductions of what's his name? Old Sherlock Holmes. Elementary, my dear. So a lot of that scientific thinking, the ability to think outside of the box, to think of things completely separate from what you normally would think about. And so tracking is how humans' early brain development would have been. We weren't able to physically subdue animals. We could maybe set some traps, but to physically subdue animals was beyond us at that point. And we somehow managed to decipher the ability to use poison, and then we'd dart or arrow an animal and then be able to track it for hours or days. And to be able to track an animal requires you being able to step out of your mental capacity to think like the animal. And as far as I'm aware, we're the only species that's able to do that. All other animals use a sense of smell. I don't think they're able to go, oh, there's a lion track and there's a lion track. And obviously I don't think any animal wants to find a lion, to be honest, but they can sniff them out, as we do see with a lot of our animals also being sniffed out. Ian, that's a very good question. The minimum would be about 6 months to train someone who can track. But some people are more gifted than others. Some people see things better than others. They do 6 months to a year training courses at places like the Tracker Academy. On our courses that we did for our level 1 field guide courses, essentially you're tracking all the time. But you're not necessarily on a tracking course the entire time, but you're always learning about the tracking. But we were doing 1 week tracking courses there, and at the end people were getting a track and sign qualification dependent on how they did on identification of tracks. So within a week you can get by, but to physically follow an animal, what we call trailing, that is a different art altogether. You know, you can show somebody a whole lot of tracks in the sand and they can get quite high on an identification point of view, but actually getting someone to be able to follow something, that takes years. That takes years of experience. And whenever the opportunity arose, when I was in my early training days, I used to follow people and walk with them. So I had lots of practice, and also learned from some of the greats, senior trackers back in my day, excellent Ndlovu, Glass Marimani, George and Kuna, some wonderful names. Johnson, what was Johnson's surname? Can't remember his surname. Oh, the flies. The flies have arrived with the buffalo poo, and they are everywhere. I'm sure the insect-eating birds or the fly catchers are quite happy. Seb's going to spray some anti-fly spray in the air. So it takes years of practice, and some of the really good trackers, I mean, I reckon Rexon has been doing this for 25 years, maybe more. In my mouth. Rich, you want to know if animals at our park get tracked by radio transmitters? And that is a negative. I just want to chat with Seb quickly. Seb, Kirsty said it was in the quarry there?
No.
Not there.
We left her on the right-hand side of the sand.
Okay, let's go have a look, see if we can find her. We don't have any radio trackers here, and if we did, in the Kruger Park in general, if there are radio tracking devices or GPS devices found in animals, which you will find on a number of the buffalo, big breeding herds of buffalo within the Kruger, radio transmitters, or it might be GPS to satellite. They don't really need to find those animals daily, but it brings back information. They're doing studies on buffalo and the TB, the bovine tuberculosis, and how that affects the lion population. So a lot of buffalo herds are GPS, but that's not for tourism to find them. There's a number of elephants in the Kruger Park as well that were collared. It's possible a lot of those collars are being removed now. It's been quite a few years now, but in the early 2000s, they decided to collar a number of breeding herds, so big females in the herd, and the number of bulls, to see how these animals utilized the Kruger National Park, how they utilized the private reserves around the Kruger Park, but none of that is for tourism. If there are any cheetah that are released, I don't know if they collar them. Have you found her? Oh. Okay. So Seb said she was over here. Let's just have a little scratch around. I believe if there is a male lion or a pride of lions that escapes, they might bring them back in and then collar them. And then the GPS signal will indicate if they've escaped again, and then they'll go through different measures then. Animals that learn to escape, especially cats, can become a problem outside the park. Unfortunately, a problem. We'll eat livestock and maybe people, so just a little bit of a problem. But none of it's for tourism. There are some parks in South Africa that the animals are all collared or GPSed in some way, and the people can go and find those animals. That is tourism based. Also to secure them. They want to know where they are because they are a resource for them. Let's just see if the lioness is still here. She's probably moved off. These flies are absolutely rampant. I feel like I'm in the migration again. Okay, so she was here. There's a lovely game path over here that sends us all the way back onto Hyena Road and back towards where we've come from, of course. Okay, so nothing here. I'm going to have to jump off in a minute just to see if I can find out where her tracks might have gotten to. I don't see anything. I just see vehicle tracks. People have been here this morning. And while Jamie's had a moment or two to chat with Rexon, let's go over to her and see if they've managed to come up with the code to finding Tundi.
Depressingly, I should have gone with my first instinct about that drag mark. It's the kill she has. Because nothing about it was making sense, the way that she would have dragged it, anything like that. So Rex thinks that it's the drag mark for that original kill. The blood looked shiny and wet, but it must be dry, which means that it was a kill that she made this morning, and that she must have been incredibly hungry when she actually had a chance, well, when she ate this morning, because she finished off a massive amount of it before James and Seb got there. So Rex is helping us check around to see whether or not we can pick up on where she's gone. I don't know. That blood looked so much fresher than it actually must have been. But anyway, at least we've solved that mystery, and we figured out why it didn't make any sense. Nothing was adding up properly. Spats wants to know whether or not leopards mark where they had their kills, and the answer to that is no. They do not. They just know where they have their kills. They're not going to forget that. They're with their kills almost constantly until that kill is finished or until it is stolen by one animal or another. And so they don't need to mark it. The only thing that they do is they will bury the stomach contents to try and hide the smell a little bit better. So, and that again is only if it's a large animal. If it's a small animal, they will actually eat the stomach contents as well. Like a steenbok or a duiker, they'll eat the entire animal itself. And they don't scent mark around it, because all that's going to do is attract attention to it, which is the last thing that they want to do. There's so many different things out here that could potentially scavenge a leopard's kill, whether it's another leopard, a lion, a hyena, birds, potentially. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the Game Drive radio. Sorry guys, I'm gonna answer now. Orbs, there were tracks of Pride going north on Zoe's, but they were not fresh at all this morning. North towards Balanites Junction. I didn't see them north of the Balanites Junction. There's a tree very much in our way. I want to show you a kudu. Lovely family of kudu. There we go. Okay, that'll do for now. We found a little gap. Copy that. Marvelous. We might not have found a leopard, but we've found you a kudu instead. In fact, an entire herd of ruminating kudu. Enjoying the afternoon sun. It's actually the perfect temperature now. The sun is shining, the wind is keeping it from getting too hot. And I imagine that they're soaking in as much warmth as possible before it comes time for the temperatures to drop into the cool winter evening. Princess Jasmine wants to know what the survival rate is for herbivores. What does survival rate mean exactly? What exactly does that mean? Does that mean the number of herbivores that will attain their full age, or their full life expectancy? Because that would be very few of them will ever reach the sort of the average age of, well, about half of them will reach the average age of an antelope like a kudu. The full life expectancy, probably not. Do you mean what is the survival rate for young antelope that go over a year old? And the answer to that is probably around about 50%. But it is so variable and dependent upon different factors, whether it's the number of predators around, whether it's dependent upon the particular weather or the prevailing weather of that year, what the food supply is like. So it's difficult to really give an exact statistic, and also it will differ from place to place, and there's not necessarily the same research done into the survival rate of, say, a number of impala lambs in East Africa is going to be completely null and void and inapplicable to an area like, for example, Djuma, that has seasons, that has breeding seasons. You're looking at probably around about 50% of baby antelope survive past their first year. But that really is a very rough idea. And that's just, I would say, based purely on my part, on observation of things like the breeding season for impala, where you've got little lambs wandering about, and I would say roughly 50, maybe even 60% mortality rate, so 40% survival rate. Populations of antelope tend to grow at around about 20% a year. That is a very broad stroke. generalization. But if you are somebody who's dealing in management of an area or management of a reserve, if you don't have predators, you can account for around about a 20% population growth with the number of natural deaths and births. Actually, sorry, even with predators. Now, if you factor that in, and it does depend on the species of the antelope, you can kind of get an idea of what that means. That means that if you count the total number of births and subtract the number of deaths, then you get 20% of the population. What am I even trying to say anymore? I don't know. I've forgotten. But that's about as concise an answer as I can give you into the survival rate of an antelope. Most antelope will meet their end at the sort of the end of a tooth and a claw from another predator. If they manage and are canny enough to survive to old age, there will come a time when their reactions are just that little bit too slow, or they get unlucky and their luck just runs out. See how he is moving into this thicket. And it's interesting, he is being cautious even though there are actually other kudu behind there. They are by nature very stealthy antelope. Richard said that they look like they have giant rabbit ears. I think they look as though they've got giant radar dishes sitting out of the side of their brains or out of the side of their heads. They are so cute. I love their ears. These massive, massive things. And of course the obvious, the next direction is to say all the better to hear things with, which is of course the entire point of ears like this. Nikita wants to know if it's true that every curve on a kudu's horn means that he has aged a year. And while it's probably a sort of rough and ready way of aging a kudu, it's not 100% accurate, obviously, because I do know what you're saying, but the most obvious failing point of that theory, and unfortunately he's gone now, the most obvious point of that failing point of that theory is once he reaches a certain point, where are you looking?
We're looking west.
Looking west, kudu alarm calling in the drainage south of Elephant Skull, looking towards Treehouse side. You can actually see it alarm calling, that's so cool. Negative Rex, I've got kudu alarm calling. They're looking west from where I am. I'm on the drainage of Elephant Skull. They're looking west towards Treehouse. Let's go, guys, shall we? FM, many eyes help. Okay. Just talking there about the alertness of kudu. Now, this kudu hasn't seen whatever that kudu has seen. But, she's still going. She is cross. Whoa! It's such a deep sound. I don't even remember what I was talking about now. It's a very cool example of a kudu alarm calling. Now, there's only so far she can see in this thicket, which I would guess... excuse me. Oh, yes, we were talking about aging kudu, and it's a rough and ready way, but it's not particularly helpful, is basically where I was going with that. It's slightly more complex. They grow slightly faster at the earlier stages of their life, and then they start to slow down as time continues. Copy, I'll keep you updated. So I believe I wish they'd all stop talking to me so I could think. I think she was looking on the southern side here. I believe it was it Owen Davies who made that amazing aging kudu chart on the growth of the horns and exactly how helpful that is. He made a beautiful chart on that. Or Project Alpha, depends upon which platform. But that was, I found, incredibly helpful for aging kudu. If he's willing, I might even use it to show you, but I'd have to find it first. Let's find the leopard first and foremost. So she was just here, looking here. This is probably where Tundi went. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Owen Davies, / Project Alpha. Whatever name you prefer. That does help. Project Owen. Where's Andre? Let's just stop for 1 second. Let's just stand by here. No, it was a bit further here. Let's just get round this corner. How far could she see? Could also, of course, be another leopard. Doesn't necessarily have to be Tundi. So Sticker's also quite upset. I'm so tired of following alarm calls and them not resulting in a leopard, which is nobody's fault but my own. Still a little bit further. Who's wandering around Weaver's Nest? Angry testiculars. I wish they could be more specific rather than reaching away. If they could go over there and then point. Not the kudu. That is. I can still see it, because she's still calling. Oh! Quite the bark, that. Ma'am, you should get that checked. That is a nasty cough. Still going. But where? Where is the leopard? Is the leopard in the block? Or is the leopard out of the block? Now we're going too far. No tracks coming out here. When in doubt, blame the skittish male leopard, hey? It's him, obviously. Not that I can't find. Valkadog said that is one angry woman. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous how close up how ridiculous a kudu alarm call actually is. It's been a long time since I've had one this close. You're okay, but where? How good is your eyesight? I hear you. I'm picking up what you're putting down, but where? Yes, I know. She can't have seen all the way to the road. P-Heart, no, it's not a snake. She wouldn't be alarm calling it a snake. It would be a leopard, honestly, or a lion. If it somehow walked into a lion, but I would... Look, the way I've been tracking lions over the course of the last few days, I would say... Yo. I'm starting to feel like this kudu. Just a one as well, which is quite funny. Cool Breeze wants to know if any leopard has ever got scared of an alarm call and has run away. Scared? No. Irritable? Yes. Definitely. It's you, madam. She's looking back this way, obviously. There we go. That's her. Yo! She really put her back into that. One more? Could I offer you a strepsil? Oh, all right then. It's a bit rude. You know, I would actually love to sit and watch her alarm calling because it's fascinating to see how much of an all-body experience it is for them, but we need to go find what she's shouting at. It's actually quite a terrifying sound. I love how no one's backing. I know, no one's backed her up here. It's just her. It's a bit like one of those psychological thrillers where no one believes her. Let's go drive the route she's looking. What was I talking about? Oh, leopards get very irritated when things see them and start alarm calling because it means that their hunting efforts are going to be a waste. Let's go. I'm going to drive an almost straight line from... Yes, I get it. Oh, bye, girl. Thank you. Meanwhile, the rest of the kudu are going, oh, it's just Margaret. She's a panicker. That's fine. Let's see, Kirst. Let's see. Maybe we get lucky. If we don't, then, well, yes, I know. I get it. Thank you. Maybe the kudu knows something that I don't, and that's why they're ignoring her. Where? Oh, no, Margaret is not insane. It's a leopard. Well spotted, Jandre. It's Tundi. Well played. Thank you, kudu. Well done, Jandre. Woohoo! Right, Quarry Bush. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Hey, Tundi. This is silly. I'm going to stop trying to be a hero and do things the long way round. Sorry, Quarry Bush. It would have sprung up, but I'm not going to. That's just silly. Okay. Watch her get up and disappear while I'm doing this. I'm watching you. I'm watching you, you sly kitty cat. Okay. Would you like... No. Okay. While I get there, and while we duck under these branches, let's send you across to Steve for the moment, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Well done, Jamie and Jean-Andre, for spotting Tundi. Kudu is giving you a helping hand. I always find Kudu to be very reliable in their shouting. Not so much a squirrel. As you recall, the other day we had that squirrel with Osana. The squirrel didn't make a peep, even when the little chief started moving away. Hello, squirrel. Beautiful big knobthorn tree you're sitting in. The tail does look like a windsock. In fact, it's this is the weather report squirrel. He likes to, or she likes to, stand outside to show us which way the wind is blowing. So if you do find yourself in a lion sighting with a kill, you know where to park so that you don't smell the rotting meat or the scat on the floor. Very important lesson I learned when I was on a walk, probably in my early years at school. We were in a game reserve and something had died. I can't remember what it was. And we were with this ranger, and I always wanted to be a ranger even from that age. And I remember him walking with all of us 20, 30 students, and he came and stood on the other side of the rotten carcass, and lo and behold, I stood next to him, and the wind was blowing from his and my back towards the carcass. And you know the half moon shape, everybody always forms around something. Well, everybody formed that big half moon circle shape underneath the carcass the way the wind was blowing, and everyone was pulling a very, very bad faces as the rotten meat was wafting down into all the nostrils. I've never forgotten that lesson. I think it must have been about 10 or 11 at the time. And here the squirrel with its tail to remind us of that. Okay, so we checked around Buffelshoek watering hole where the last sign of Origino's, the female lioness, was. There's no sign of her there. A few hyena tracks, a few vehicle tracks. I think she went back off towards the west. It's hard to say. I did follow a whole lot of lion tracks now that apparently were already there this morning, and I've been told that they're in Torchwood, most of them, Kuhuma. So it's possible that she picked up on that trail and found them. Very hard to be able to tell you if it's a new lioness track next to a pride of lions. Definitely not at that stage of tracking expertise. Lion tracks, some were driven over, some weren't. Okay, well, I hope Jamie's managed to catch her breath, because we're going to be sending you back over to her and Tunde, who's enjoying a little bit of the shade.
I have managed to catch my breath, and I hope that Margaret, the sharp-eyed kudu, has managed to catch her breath as well. Secondly, I would hope that all the other kudu believed Margaret and didn't think that she was alarming at nothing. Sorry guys, just hold on one moment. There's space for 3 here for now with where she is. I don't know if Bernie wanted to take third vehicle. Okay, copy. Right, they can sort it out for them from there. Yeah, I don't know what she's doing here. She's obviously... I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm tired of trying to guess exactly what's going on in Tundi's mind. I don't know why she put that Impala kill where she put it. I don't know why she's come all the way down here. Although it all worked out quite well for us in the end. I did say I would do a loop, and this took us in the right direction. But as for why she's left the rest of that kill, I don't know. Oh. Well, now, that was just plain old inconsiderate. wasn't it? I think she's just exhausted and full. So we were talking about earlier how far a leopard will go from their kill, and I think we kind of have our answer in the sense that she's gone roughly about probably a kilometre away, give or take. Not quite a mile, yeah, about a kilometre from her kill. And she seems quite content with that to be the reality. Now, I don't know if she's planning on going back there or not. Magic Dragon Wizard wants to know if they're crazy or if she looks a little bit rough. She looks a bit matted, to be honest. I don't know that she looks rough. However, I wouldn't call you crazy, no. I mean, we all know that there is a certain inevitable aging process happening with two of our beloved leopards, Tingana and Tundi. They're getting older, and getting older for them, who live a hard life out here with a lot of different potential challenges and a lot of rough living. That means, you know, it starts to take its toll, and they start to look rough around the edges. I will say she looks a bit matted on her chest and under her chin. I don't know why that would be. Maybe just from feeding. And yes, her ears are fly bitten and all tatty, and her teeth have gone yellow with age, and as you know, one canine is missing the tip of it. That's all part of the process. I suppose it depends on how you look at it. They're all part of the idea that she's done pretty well for herself. Also, really, really nice example of behavior there, both from the kudu, in terms of Margaret, and a big thank you to Margaret, by the way, and the way that she was the only one alarm calling, and secondly, the fact that Tundi didn't get up and move. She didn't bother. She was obviously content in the knowledge that at some point the loud kudu, the nosy kudu, was going to move away. I don't know if it's like having nosy neighbours. I'm just there's going to be other vehicles making their way into the sighting, and I'm trying to think how I can capitalise on the best position. So while I figure that one out, and while I help to direct orbs into the sighting, let us go across to Steve. Apparently he is beating himself with a branch.
Thanks, Jamie. Well done again. Sebastian and I are finding it unbelievable to deal with the flies. So a trick I was also taught years ago by one of my tracker friends was a very nice quarry branch. Works wonderfully well to keep the flies away and for Seb to annoy me at the same time. I'm now thinking twice about giving him that piece. Sorry, Kirsty, I suddenly had the game drive radio turking exactly at your same pitch, and all I heard was aardvark and big animals. I do apologize. Took the aardvark. You want to know if animals respond to bug spray? Well, I have absolutely no idea. I've never tried it. I used to carry, on my trails, I used to carry pepper spray with me as a last resort in case, elephants are quite sensitive to the nostril stuff, and pepper spray, I would never spray it in the air, but if need be, an elephant encroached to a point where I felt unsafe or I wanted to extract and whatever, you can always just do a line in the sand of pepper spray. That has got the benefit of keeping certain animals at bay, but bug spray, I don't know. I don't think, unless you go right up to a line and shh in his face, I don't think there's going to be anything. I'm going to sniff it and go, what is that? No idea. What do you reckon, Seb? Just me when you spray me in the face, I suppose. Seb did a cheeky one earlier and sprayed the bug spray underneath the camera while I was looking back. Don't worry, he'll get his comeuppance. We are truly friends, me and him and I. My gran just rolled over in a grave at me saying me and him and I, he and I. My gran is always very, very prim and proper with the English. He actually gave me lots of extra lessons when I was younger. I wasn't learning as fast as all the other children. It happens these days. Kirsten wants to know if my gran is James Hendry, and no, not at all. But there's a lot of similarities in language and in the scolding, I suppose, I get when I do say something incorrectly. So that comes directly from the director Kirsten McLennan Smith's lips, if anyone out there by the name of James Hendry is watching. But it's good to be corrected when you make a mistake, otherwise you keep making the same mistake over and over. But at school I was a little bit behind some of the other students. You know, when you've got a teacher who's looking after 25, 30 kids, and you've got a little bit of something that keeps you behind, not saying you're stupid or anything, you just don't learn the same way. And I think there's a lot more of that coming out these days, that there's learning difficulties. Back when I was a child, no one really knew much about it. You just were slow, and then you had to go to another class. And my gran took me out of that school and put me in a school where she knew a teacher, because my gran was an ex-teacher, although retired. And that lady was able to give me that extra little bit of attention that I required. And my gran also used to sit down with me every day and just go over certain things. I had weekends off, of course, but used to go over little things just to help me with grasping some of the things I wasn't grasping. And lo and behold, I achieved my... Ooh, there's warthogs running. Nope, we're not going to catch them. We might catch them. I achieved my high school schooling, and I managed to go through and get 2 degrees. One with cum laude. So everybody has the potential. Oh, sorry. Everybody has the potential to do well with a little bit of extra attention. Everybody learns differently from others. And once those challenges are addressed, and they've just gone off to the right, there they go. Once the challenges of learning are addressed, it's quite easy to overcome them, I suppose, with hard work. Well, very good. Seb and I have decided on this warm day to maybe go down and just have a little look at Chitwa, because we're not far from there now. We'd like to find some elephants, I said, and elephants are an animal we quite often find around water on warm days, and maybe even get some elephants swimming. Now, who knows what we might find down by the water as well. There could be some buffalo. I've no doubt there will be some waterbuck and impalas and all those cool birds that we find. But while we make our way down to Chitwa, let's go back over to Thandi and Mrs. Patterson.
Well, there's one less waterbuck at Chitwa Dam, but yes, there definitely will be others. And while Steve heads across in that direction, I'm sitting thinking about the inevitable process of aging, which of course happens to all of us. And I'm thinking about the fact that there's nothing more beautiful in the world than a young male leopard, or even a young leopard. They're perfect. The outline of their ears, everything about them is innocent, beautiful, sleek, smooth, and dignified. But there is something special about a leopard that time has left its mark on. So in her time, Thandi has raised so many different cubs. She's borne the loss of quite a few of them, as is inevitable for all female leopards, because it's impossible for them not to lose a litter of cubs in their lifetime. It just doesn't happen. She's caught herself multiple meals. In her prime, she pulled down adult female waterbuck. She's earned this. Zana wants to know, something caught her attention. There's something squeaking. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's the electric vehicle. That's what it is. Zana wants to know, snuck up on me. whether or not she is one of Karula's cubs, and the answer to that is yes. She's Karula's oldest living daughter. Her sister Shadow unfortunately passed away at some point last year, and it was amazing just how similar those two leopards actually looked to each other. They really, really did. They had a face that was often, people mixed them up because they looked so similar. So yes, Karula had Tundi and Shadow when she was about 2 years old. I think at that point Shadow was called Tingana. I'm not sure. I think Tundi was called Tundi all along. And it was so interesting, the differences in their personalities. Tundi she's my favorite leopard, so I'm biased. There's different ways you could phrase this. You could describe her as grumpy. I would describe her as not afraid to put down her own boundaries. And that applies to vehicles and people and other animals alike. How's it, Sibs? Hi, guys. There's a kid here who's got leopards on his pajamas. So cute. Cool Breeze says that Tundi deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award. Yes, I suppose that reaching over the age of 10 for almost all big cats is a Lifetime Achievement Award. But yes, if we could give her one, we absolutely would. She's certainly earned it. And she's certainly been very successful in what is essentially the mission of all living things out here, and that is reproduction. And she has managed to raise successful offspring, and I wonder, I haven't told her that her son is mating at Singita, but I wonder if she'd be proud. Probably a bit weird to say that, isn't it? But ultimately her genes have spread all the way across down to the west, to Singita, where her son Tamba has just started mating for, as far as we know, the first time. Isn't that quite cool to think about? Shannon wants to know what my most memorable Tundi moment is. It's a story I've told many times before, but I can't help that because it is just that memorable. And my most memorable Tundi moment was, I think I'd only actually encountered 3 dead male impala, and Tamba and his sibling were this big. I mean, they were minute. And we'd gone there and we were sitting waiting to see if she would call the cubs out, and she didn't. And all of a sudden, she was lying in a position similar to this. All of a sudden, she got up and shot off. And there was a commotion in the bushes to the north of us. And it was only later, when we actually looked through the footage properly, that we realized exactly how things had played out. Basically, what had happened was a troop of baboons had stormed through the area and attempted to catch her cubs. And what she did was she launched herself up. She tackled one of the baboons, just enough to provide a distraction, and then turned and ran at about half of her speed, her normal speed, away from them, to draw them away from her cubs, and the 2 little cubs dashed for safety. And when we played back the footage, you could actually see one little cub running and leaping over a log, and the baboon's hands reaching out to grab it. And then she had to run up a tree, and they stood below her and bared their teeth at her. And that to me was such a pure example of the strength of a female's maternal instinct and the metaphorical size of Tundi's, never mind, let's rephrase that, and Tundi's sheer courage. She is a really tough leopard. The first time I ever saw Tundi was in the Mulwati. I thought it was Shadow. She was mating with Tingana, and I'd never seen her before. And they looked so similar, and I stared at her for ages thinking this is Shadow, but wrong. Another very, very memorable sighting with Tundi was a couple of weeks ago when I was meant to be babysitting her for a TV show, in other words, trying to keep her for the afternoon. And she was a bit annoyed because June, the hyena, had been harassing her. And she walked straight up to me and then just stared at me for a full minute, baring her teeth at me, and then went and lay down next to me in my shade. Because she's a weirdo that way. It's just one of those things. Some of Karula's offspring did it. They were snarly, and some weren't. Hey, pussycat. Look at that pretty white tail tip. I got teased quite a lot about that baboon sighting when I was shouting, "Run, little cub, run." Apparently lots of you didn't get a chance to see that. You should... Yes, run, little cub. It was between that and I think shortly before or after that I'd had a sighting where Shadow was chased up the tree by wild dogs. And I was going, "Run, Shadow, run, Shadow, run, Shadow, run." And between those two sightings, well, my word, I didn't hear the end of that. I was teased about that for a fair amount of time. I think she looks pretty good when you think of what the years have offered her. We all have our moments where we get carried away. Kirst says it's like James's zebra birth sighting. It's born and it's alive and it's born and it's, you get caught up in the moment and you actually lose the capacity to function or speak like a rational, normal human being. And what comes out of our mouths, because, it's not natural to narrate everything that you're seeing. It isn't. Even for us, and even when we've done it for a while. So sometimes and of course we have to a certain point, monitor what we actually say. But sometimes what slides out is just the natural response to something. And to a certain extent, of course, we've got to try and keep ourselves neutral if we can. Doesn't always work, though. All right, well, Steve has arrived at Tundi's old haunt, although she never goes there anymore. He is at Chitwa, sorry, words failing me. Off you go to see some crocodiles.
We are indeed. Kirsty, I think have a little sip of water there. Sounds like you're about to choke yourself. I hope you're okay. Well, we found some crocodiles, and there's a lovely trail of the crocodile as it heads up the bank. There's a very weird whistling noise coming from the back of the car.
Not me.
I know it's not you. The way the wind is blowing. There's one crocodile who's enjoying the wind to cool down, and there's the other one, pretending it can't be seen with its head in the bushes. Two of the largest crocodiles you see around Chitwa. Either one of them is probably responsible for the impala deaths that we've seen around. Chitwa's definitely looking much better than all the other watering holes we have access to. But the availability of forage on the other side of the bank, you can see it's completely devoid of grass. There's trees, but the grass is gone. So, no animals that we can see at the moment, but we're going to just wait a little bit, see if anything materializes. It comes down. Crocodiles, everybody likes crocodiles. And the one animal I don't trust, the one animal who I don't know, I've always had a weird feeling when I see crocodiles up close. Something very primal about them. Lots and lots of power. Perfectly adapted for their environment. Not so well adapted on land, of course, but they can still maneuver themselves across land. That wind is really picking up. You can probably all hear it in the microphone. There's the berg winds once again coming from inland. We've had a cold front for 2 days. Now it's gone back to the warm front. And we've got the dance of the stork. Ooh, what are you doing, Mr. Stork? Doing a little bit of arm wing stretches there. Ooh, one-legged pivot. Aren't you magnificent? Using the wind a little bit to hold itself up. I can't tell you at this exact moment whether that is the male or the female, but they are both together. Now that is the female that we were looking at. The male is on the right. He's got that little wattle that comes down on the bottom of his cheek. Susanna, you want to know if chitwa is natural or man-made? Well, right now we're currently sitting on a big dam wall, and so it is a natural drainage still. When we go upstream, this is a natural drainage system, which means water would naturally have flowed here, but it is what has happened all across the Kruger and all across the private reserves on this side. Many people have started off as small little bolsters, which eventually over time became much larger. And there are more dams in South Africa than any other country on the African continent. We are not a high rainfall country, so many places decided over many years to dam the water to keep the water from flowing downstream. And of course, dams for the most part, they do provide out of season water in an area where there probably wasn't water before, which has led to what we see in the Sabi Sands as structure change in the vegetation, overgrazing, limited fire, and also the change in the herbivore species composition. But throughout the country as well, the creation of dams has limited the flow of water downstream, which has also affected estuaries and river ecology. So we're still paying the price for everything that happened more than probably 60, 70 years ago. Sometimes some of them a bit shorter, but a lot of the management strategies put in to places like this were done a very long time ago as a means of providing water for what was probably cattle ranching back in the day. And cows, excuse me, are very thirsty animals. No doubt the hippos are very happy for the creation of a place like Djuma Watering Hole for them to produce in. Albeit, I don't know exactly what crocodiles taste like, but I think they are eaten. Their skin is used for things. They are actually farmed in certain places in South Africa for those products. And as far as I've been told, they taste like chicken. Seb, have you eaten crocodile?
Yeah, it tastes like chicken. Yeah.
Seb says it tastes like chicken. I've never eaten crocodile. But there are a lot of crocodile farms in places in South Africa. So Louise, our D2 director, some days D2 today, she says it tastes like chicken with the texture of calamari. Well, I wonder if you can all figure what that feels or tastes like. Many animals will eat crocodile, especially youngsters. Crocodile eat crocodile as well. They're not above being cannibals. Large crocodiles obviously feeding on smaller crocodiles. But right now there's no feeding going on. There's just chilling in the sun. That one is very warm. Tell by the fact that its mouth is open. Tambellini, I've never seen crocodiles making active kills outside of the water, but I have seen them fighting with lions on a kill that was made nearby. I've also found a crocodile trying to grab a nyala that possibly perished from some disease not far from the water's edge, but more than 50, 60 yards away. Was trying to grab it and pull it back. But they're not known for their stealth outside of the water or their speed. Invariably, if you do encounter a crocodile outside the water, they run back to the water's edge. It doesn't mean that they're not dangerous outside the water. They run back to the water just like hippos do because of the safety net. But if you do encounter a crocodile on land that's moving from maybe one source to another, because they have an instinct that knows when a water source is going to dry out, and they know when it's time to leave. If you encounter one on that long distance between water, well, who knows how it will react. You do not want to get in the way. They are dangerous animals, but they're not as quick as we are, but they are faster than you think when they get moving. How much faster than you think, and very, very powerful. Very powerful indeed. I don't look it in that position though. Okay, well, we're going to move on from here after one more scan to see if anything's coming down to drink. And while we do that, let's go back over to Tundi and see if she's going to get up and maybe go back to her meal.
I think we're going to settle in with Tundi for the rest of the afternoon. Certainly not going to give up this leopard sighting. Doesn't seem as though anyone else is interested in joining us either, so we have her all to ourselves. How wonderful is that? Look at those beautiful little paw pads. Is there anything that is quite as appealing as a leopard's paw, or a cat's paw in general? There's just something so neat and perfect about them. Yes, they're toe beans. Look at her toe beans. Aren't they gorgeous? Sorry, Game Drive Radio. Copy. Fiona says Tundi wouldn't be able to take down a kudu, would she? An adult kudu, it would be a push. However, I have heard many stories about Tundi's hunting prowess, including the rumor that she was able to take down an adult or almost adult female waterbuck, which in terms of bulk is bigger than a kudu. In terms of height, maybe not so much. Kudu are a little bit taller. A young kudu, yes. An adult female, an adult male, definitely not. I am not sure that she would at this stage now. She's getting a little stiff, a little bit slower. Oh, that's interesting. All right, essentially my answer is no, but never count Tundi out. Let's go across to Steve, whose hippos are behaving in an interesting fashion.
Well, everybody, we're not 100% sure, but it looks like we have a hippo mating here. The one out of the water is completely mounted on the back of another one whose nostrils keep popping up every now and again. Ooh, in front of it. And by the way that his body is positioned, there you can see the nostrils. He's completely on top of the animal. I've never ever seen hippos mating before, but it's very possible this is what's happening, because hippos will mate in the water. Never seen a hippo out of the water like that unless it's on the bank or on something more solid. He's enjoying himself there. Very interesting. So as the book details, it does happen. Most matings happen in the dry season. So that the peak of births is in the wet season and the rainy times. And oh, definitely, it's almost like he was trying to bite the back of her neck like a lion would do. This is awesome. We didn't see too much. We didn't see too much in the way of courting. There's a few youngsters that are sort of hanging around. You could just see the nostrils in front of him that pop up. So deja vu, she's not being drowned because, see, there's definitely something going on there. You can just see her nostrils pop up. She can hold her breath for a very long time. So while she's under, she can pop her nose up every now and again so as to breathe, which is what she's doing. So the female's head is often forced underwater, and when she raises it to breathe, he might snap at her. So courtship is often punctuated by wheeze honking. There we go. I think he's done. Oh, how interesting. Now let's see. He's now rolling around. What a happy man he is. Is she going to come up and show us herself? Oh, he's going back again. There we go, Seb. That's what you wanted to see. Some movement. Remember the first time I saw hyenas mating, it was very boring. The lady just stood there and the guy just sort of hung on the back and just looked at us like, what are you watching here? That's initially what this looked like, but there's a little bit more movement now. Oh, what was that? It's all happening in the middle of Chitwa. A little baby is popping up every now and again. Cat lover, you feel bad for the female because you imagine he's very heavy. Well, that's the beautiful thing about the water. The water takes the weight out of almost anything. It's probably one of the reasons why hippos love being in the water all the time. They're quite bulky and quite heavy, and for the most part they are quite sort of awkward out of the water. But in the water takes away all that weight. The buoyancy effect is great. That's why elephants, I think, love the water so much. Their entire mass and weight almost becomes nothing as they move through the water. So at least they don't mate outside the water like a rhino or elephant. Imagine a 9-10-year-old elephant cow being mounted by a 6,000 kilogram male, 12.5, 13,000 pound male elephant, and she probably only weighs about maybe 2.5, 3,000 kilograms, so 4,000, 5,000 pounds. You can't imagine how uncomfortable that must be. At least here, it's got the soft bottom of the dam, and it's got the buoyancy afforded her by the water. Come on, give us some wheeze honking there, sir. There's definitely something going on. Punctuated. You just see her nostrils there in front of her face, and all the youngsters are coming and having a look. Safari lover, he most certainly would get mad if another male came around. Essentially, hippos determine or define themselves by their territory within these pans, wallows, rivers, whatever it might be. And within that space that he has determined to be his, that is where the females accumulate. His pods of females are attracted to his entrance and exits to food resource, as well as enough water to keep them. So there's probably 2, maybe 3 dominant males within this patch of water, and each would have his own section of females. And if another male decided to venture in there, he better be ready for a fight. There's a bit of gas being released there as well. It's all happening this afternoon. What do you all think? Does everybody agree? Are we witnessing hippo mating here? This appears to be the case without me ever actually witnessing it before. There, the youngsters are now mimicking it. They're learning a thing or two a bit too fast. I've seen hyenas mimicking mating, practicing mating as a form of submissive behavior. Well, these hippos are getting a front row seat to the circle of life. probably just wandering around going, Mum, why is this big guy holding you under the water? Hashtag safariLIVE if you think we're talking a load of nonsense, or if you actually think what we're seeing is hippo mating. It seems to be very, very clear, don't you think, Seb? I've never seen this before. There he goes. Almost like he wants to bite at her neck constantly, almost like the way we see in lions. My behavioral guide doesn't give me more information about what to see, but what we're seeing, him mounting, pushing the head under the water, and being pretty much locked together, it seems to be a very clear indication. Oh, he's off again. There we go. She's finally allowed her head up. I think that's her to the right, moving away quickly now. I'm glad everybody seems to agree with us. It's not always possible to know everything. Oh, he's moving quite quickly to go find her again. Let's see what happens. So essentially, once finding the estrus female, they can actually turn and clash jaws with each other before he forces her into a submissive sort of prostate submission, and whereby he then mounts, and it seems to be that is the case he was doing. What we were seeing with Mohawk the other day, how he'd physically force the young female lioness down. Obviously, we can tell that the hippo take a lot longer than lions do. Not as exciting as lion mating, I must admit, but nice to see the circle of life and to see the process behind how Chitwa has been doing so well with all these hippos. Okay, well, we're going to stay here, see what other behavior we can delve out of the depths of Chitwa. Meantime, let's go back to Thandi, the Queen of Djuma.
No, hippos of Chitwa don't make more hippos. At least not yet. In fact, it would be a very bad idea to keep making more hippos. We want to discourage that sort of behavior because there's actually really not that much space for them anymore, unfortunately. But no, hippo mating not quite as passionate as something like lions mating, certainly not so much as leopards mating. Thandi is the female that holds the record, in my experience, for the most number of times mating with a male in the space of 5 minutes. No, wait, let me try and remember. I timed her and I counted, and it was 11 times in 10 minutes. I have never in my life seen anything like that ever before or since. With Tingana back in their heyday. And actually that would have been when Tumba was made, I think, or around about that time. I've even somewhere got slow-mo videos of it because it was the very first time I got my phone that was capable of filming in slow-mo, so it must have been the beginning of 2016. As you can tell, lots happened here while you've been away. She rolled over once. At one point she stretched out her front paw a little bit. Jean has pointed out that she doesn't look as though she's eaten an entire impala. I don't think she's looked like she's eaten a whole young impala, but maybe we need her to stand up. Now, speaking about mating, Oak Tree wants to know, isn't Tingana mating with Kuchava, and isn't Kuchava's Thandi's daughter? First of all, yes, Kuchava is absolutely Thandi's daughter, and as soon as you see her, you'll see immediately the family resemblance. I don't care what anybody says. You can see which leopards are related to others. Secondly, I don't think they were mating. I don't quite know where the story came from. They were together on Torchwood about 2 or 3 days ago. Oh, it might have been more. When I got sick, I kind of lost a day. So now I'm not sure. But they were on Torchwood together, and they were seen together. I think it was 2 days ago. But I don't think they were mating. I think Tingana had stolen Kuchava's kill. Quite close to First Rock. But I really don't think they were mating. And I mean, if they were mating, we would have heard about them being found after that. And they weren't. I don't think they were mating. I'm not sure where that rumor started. I heard it as well myself, but never once on the Game Drive radio did anybody say, no, they're mating. As I said to you, Chinese whispers. Apparently somebody gave an update that Tingana was mating, and somebody else gave an update that Tingana and Kuchava were together. And what is that? Oh, it's the branch. It just looks odd. A branch and a piece of dirt. I thought she had something on her tail. But no, as far as I know, they weren't. I can double check for you. I'll ask somebody who was in the sighting whether or not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm mistaken. But I don't think that I am. Either way, I don't think that Tingana is Kuchava's father. I think that Mvula is more likely. Miss Adamandras, there we go, says that Tingana has mated with Kuchava before. That doesn't surprise me. Tingana is the dominant male leopard of an area, or at least used to be, of a massive area. And it was an area that included the territories of several different females, including Kuchava. So it doesn't surprise me that Tingana has mated with Kuchava before. Obviously, I haven't seen it personally, but I was also away for the period of time where there was a massive shift in leopard territories, and when Tundi came to take over Karula's old territory and left that territorial area to her sister Kuchava, where Kuchava we used to only see on Cheetah Plains, and usually only towards the southern boundary with Mala Mala. No, there were a lot of shifts around at that point, so it doesn't surprise me that he's mated with her. But he's not her father. Actually, I don't think it's physically possible for Tingana to be Kuchava's father. She must be now, 5? 6 nearly? Oh, I suppose it's possible, but it's unlikely. I don't think he'd pushed that far east at that stage. I think Mvula is a more likely suspect for Kuchava's father. I was checking the DNA results the other day, the old ones. We haven't been given any new ones. And she was one of the ones who came up as not sampled. So was Hosanna, which obviously was an example of how it had gone wrong, because we've definitely picked up Hosanna's scat before. But, hopefully one day we'll get an answer on Kuchava. You never know. Oh, don't look at me like that. I know you know who her father is, don't worry. I wasn't implying anything. It was just a suggestion. Was it Mvula? Tundi won't tell. She knows how to keep her secrets. It's the whole point of being a female leopard. Convince as many males as possible that they are the father of your cubs. Misty Stokes, I personally don't see any reason why it's not possible that Tundi could have more cubs. Shall we move a little bit? Let's see if she'll let us come past her, and then we can get a view of her face. Why shouldn't she? Just let the rev. Rusty's very enthusiastic. This vehicle loves a good start. Sorry, Genre, you good there? I'm going to keep driving you further into the quarry. Don't look at me like that. I'm just smacking Genre off the car with a quarry bush. I'm sure you'll understand. Sorry, another quarry bush, Andre. I wonder if perhaps her recent sojourn into Cheetah Plains. Well, I say recent. I'm just going to turn around. I say recent. It wasn't that recent, but she was all the way in Cheetah Plains, and I wonder if she wasn't mating with another male somewhere there. Quarantine, potentially. I think it's unlikely that we wouldn't have heard about her mating, though, with the number of vehicles driving around, but perhaps during a period when Torchwood was quite quiet, and other vehicles weren't going that way. Maybe she found a time to mate with quarantine without anybody knowing. Animals like leopards don't go through menopause. So there's actually very few creatures that do, human beings being one of them. So there's nothing physically to stop her from having more cubs. It's entirely possible. Where's going to be best? So I think it's a matter of luck. Look, she's probably not as fertile as she used to be, so maybe it'll take a couple of goes. I don't know why she hasn't mated yet, but it's not menopause. That's just not how they work. So if she's lucky, and if Tingana manages to hold on, or if perhaps she delays until a male leopard establishes themselves properly in this area, then yes, I don't see why it isn't possible for her to be a mom again. And it'll be hard. It'll be harder than perhaps the previous times. She's older now, slower. And after all that, she's moving. Look at her, she's stiff. But it's doable. Right, where are you taking us, my lady? And please don't ask me if I think she's pregnant. I'm not going to answer you. I don't know. I don't think so. But I've never claimed. I didn't get involved the first time. There was a suggestion. I just said that I heard that there was a rumor she was pregnant. I don't know. I don't claim to know. I'm not good at figuring out whether or not leopards are pregnant or not. Where's she gone? There she is. Oh, Tundi into the drainage, really? Oh, pulled my earpiece out. So I've cursed, I can't plug myself back in yet, so you'll just have to hold on. Oh. Pardon? What was that, Chandra? Steve? Steve wants to know if Tundi's pregnant. Oh, Link Steve. Oh, sorry. Okay, off you go across to Steve. That makes more sense.
We left here with... Well, here we are. We've left Chitwa, but here is the airstrip. Always a nice sort of view to look at. You can look for kilometers. And I always like looking at airstrips because especially these nice remote ones, it gives you that idea of how remote we are, but also how we have the potential to charter smaller planes and fly all the way in here to the middle of nowhere. Also takes me back to my interview when Sebastian and I were driving along the airstrip and asked you all to fasten your seatbelts. What a long time ago that feels like. But we are moving back towards Djuma. We're just taking a bit of a loop through these winding roads of Chitwa, see if we can find anything. And then maybe we'll make a turn past the hyena den on our way back, see if there's anybody home. It'd be very nice to see. But it's pretty quiet down here. Hello, Redstone Pie. You want to know if it snows in Africa? It most certainly does. I can't speak about other parts of Africa. South Africa, we've got the Lesotho Mountains as well as some of the Cape Folded Mountains in the Cape and parts of the Drakensberg, which is a big mountain range that runs pretty much all the way around the country. And in winter, because of the altitude, we do get snow on those peaks. We actually have a ski resort down in Lesotho, which does not rival anything outside of the country. It's only got like one run or two runs. I haven't been yet. But there's enough snow there to provide for some snowboarding and skiing. And it snowed in the mountains in the Cape when I was just down there on my retreat, and it was absolutely freezing. We are not designed for snow in South Africa, not designed for cold temperatures. We're used to warm temperatures, but the winters do come. We just have to layer ourselves. Kilimanjaro, I think, for the most part, is snow laden most of the time. I've never been. And I think it's always got snow right on the top of its peak because it's quite high, very high. Other parts of Africa, I really don't know. Botswana doesn't have enough altitude. Swaziland, I think it might snow there in the highest peaks. But other than that, Namibia, it feels like it's going to snow, but they don't really have the peaks. It gets very cold there. Very cold. Nothing like Europe, of course. Cold that we have to wear 2 pairs of shorts. Okay, so navigate our way through here. Lauren, you want to know what they do if there's animals on the airstrip? Well, if there's no one to drive the animals off, then quite often the pilots might buzz the airstrip with the plane. But for the most part, lodgers know that vehicles are coming in, and they will come and land. They'll come and drive, not vehicles, planes are coming, so they'll drive the airstrip with a vehicle just before. David Gitu in the Mara was actually running and chasing the zebras off when we were departing. He took us to the airstrip. He was actually running up and down the airstrip, chasing them off. So yes, you do need to clear the airstrip in one way or the other. But if there's no car to do it, you just buzz it with your plane, and most of the time the animals run off. But they are attracted to airstrips because of the short grazing that can be found on either side. And wildebeest also like them for the dust bathing and the nice visual that they have looking out over their territories. Okay, well, we're going to carry on back this way. Maybe we can head off to the hyena then. In the meantime, let's go back to Thandi and the Queen, Djuma.
And we are going to keep up with Thandi, or at least do our best. So far, we've passed the first hurdle, which was the drainage line to the north. I think there's a very good chance she's walking straight back towards this kill. Oh, we've stopped to look around. She looks a little bit more rotund. Maybe she was really hungry when she ate that impala. She must have been, if she consumed the amount she must have consumed in the time period she consumed it in. She's going to cut straight path to Weaver's Nest. Let's go. Let's see, we can catch her on Weaver's Nest up ahead. This path takes her past the dead leadwood and one of James's many leopard orchids. Let's not take a chance, though. Let's not try and be clever here. This is Thandi we're talking about. If I try and loop around her, she'll probably leave me and go walking off that way. I'm not going to take that chance. This is where we were with Harsana when he had that kudu kill. Oh, clunky, clunky. And she looks as though she's actually scent marking. Oh, marvelous. I'm gonna have to go pick that up. That's come off the tree. It's the project to try and see. It's a research project into trying to stop elephants from debarking certain trees. But obviously that can's fallen off, so I'm gonna have to go fetch it. But I can't do that while there's a leopard standing next to it, I'm afraid. Probably covered in spray as well. Of course. Okay, apparently lots of questions about what a can will do. It's a can filled with creosote that has been put up. Creosote, for those of you that don't know, is quite a pungent wood treatment. That is... I'm going to go get that can now, Chandra. I know it's pretty, but it's my opportunity before she ditches me. And so the idea is that that will deter elephants from munching. If I position you in a certain way, no, it's not going to work. Sorry, you're just going to have to miss her spraying that particular tree. Popcorn. There we go. Here we go. Right. Let's go catch up with her. Luckily, Tandy's actually not too bad with people on foot, so even if she does see me there, I doubt she'll be too stressed about it. But I put the vehicle between me and her, so I don't think she did. Nope, there she is. It's just a test, by the way, the idea of the creosote, for various reasons. I think we're going straight back to the rest of that Impala. Why, oh why, did she come all the way here to lie down and then go back to that? I mean, it's the one tree in that whole area that had the best shade canopy. So why did she do that? Well, I suppose let's give her some benefit of the doubt. Let's see if she goes back to it. Unless, of course, no, we've changed direction. Martini wants to know what an animal would make of a human scent marking a tree. And I would say that they would probably be, first of all, if they were watching the human, they would be quite nervous because a human out of a vehicle is a potential threat, so they'd probably run away. But they say that particularly for men, urinating around your campsite might actually keep away the hyenas. I think that's a complete fallacy. Fallacy. I think it's a complete fallacy. I think I'm hilarious. I think that's a story told by fathers to their sons, and it's total nonsense because I'm pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I don't think it has to be a man's urine at all, because for hyenas it's not necessarily testosterone based. The female's dominant over the males because they are, or at least partly because they're given quite a high level of testosterone during their development. When they're adults, they don't have a high level of testosterone, apparently. In fact, their levels of testosterone in female hyenas are no different to that of a human woman. Other than that, I don't think an animal would be terribly bothered by the smell of human urine. I guess it depends on how fresh it would be. They'd probably be able to tell quite a lot about you. You know, your physical condition. If you were a female, they'd probably be able to tell whether or not, I don't know if they adapted to being able to pick up the chemical signals of humans like that, but I can't see why they wouldn't be. I mean, animals know when ladies are pregnant, even early stages. We're definitely going back to her kill, I would say. So never fear, even though we are trundling through the bushes now, there is light at the end of the tunnel. They might even be able to tell you something about yourself if animals could talk that you don't know. I mean, there's dogs that are trained to sniff for cancer and all sorts of things. Don't go that way. Why are you... Did you hear me say there was light at the end of the tunnel and you decided that you just want to spite me? No, we are going straight to that tree. Let's go ahead. At this stage, if she gives me the slip, then I deserve it. But if we can get there, then we can get her climbing up the tree. No, don't change direction. Come on. That's just stupid. Go on the road. Where'd she go? Oh, I'm going to be so embarrassed if she doesn't go back to this kill and she's turned. I can't... she's just scent marking though. I still think she's coming. Take a chance. Have faith. Away my hyena. Where? Is it lying? Oh, right. There. Well, there was one there. That's a bush. It's under the tree. Okay, cool. Marvelous. There's a hyena. Let's go back to Tundi. I'm scared now. I fear I've made a poor decision. Hello, hyena. I'll come back to you in a bit. Honestly, you'd think that you wouldn't want any food at all. What have I done? No, there's my leopard. There she is coming. Jamie, stick to the courage of your convictions, girl. Let's try and get us into a position where we can see a hyena and a leopard and everything else. Oh. Tree. There we go. Okay. Hyena. Hello. My word, funny that. We were just talking about you this morning. Heart, where have you been hiding? We had a long chat about you. Oh, I'm on Tundi's game path. She's not going to appreciate that. Well, we'll just let her slink past us. Sorry, girl. I didn't think you were going to walk this exact route. Look at it this way. Now the hyena doesn't know you're here. She's so ridiculously tiny when she's that close. Heart and Tundi. Tundi's not even going to give her more than a cursory glance. Almost as if to say, Maha, nothing you can do. If you go up the other side of the tree, I will be very... Well done, girl. It's such a beautiful Scotia. The only way it could really be better is if the branch were oriented north-south so that we had the setting sun behind her. Julie says, so awesome. I know, isn't that lovely? There's a nice little touch that we were speaking about heart earlier. Okay, we can get closer now. Why? Why did she go all the way over there? For what reason? No, don't take it further up there. It's going to make life difficult. I might have to go around. The one thing you never ever do is park underneath a leopard with a kill. You can get close, but you don't park underneath it. Because if that carcass falls out of the tree and into your car, you are going to know all about it, and there's a chance it might be followed by an angry, hungry leopard as well. So you never ever park underneath or drive underneath a leopard carcass in a tree. You never know. Another leopard might come along, try to steal it. It's too dangerous and silly. So So if we shuffle around, we might just have to find ourselves a place that works. I'm going to find a nice view of Tundi while she munches away. In the meantime, it's been a beautiful evening. Let's have a look at Steve's sunset view.
It is a beautiful evening. We have framed up the golden orange sun setting in the west. Allow you all a moment or two to just enjoy. Reflect on your week behind you. It is Sunday. For some of you it might be Monday morning. Others it might be Sunday morning. Always good to take a moment out of your day and just reflect on where you're at, what's to come. Happy with what you've done. If not, change it. If you are, let it be. If there's nothing you can do, well, there's nothing you can do. You're going to hear the sound of a game viewer as it passes us by. The guests all very keen to do the sunset as well as the car just continues to drive. Thankfully, I've only got one cameraman on board. Beautiful scenes coming to you live from the Sabi Sands in the Greater Kruger National Park, South Africa, on this Sunday. What is it? The 11th of August. Where has this year gone? How many sunrises and sunsets have gone past? Doesn't feel like we've had as many sunrises and sunsets as the 11th of August implies. Everyone's enjoying this. I'm really excited about that. I do enjoy stopping to give you these views. It's not too arduous, is it, Seb?
Sorry?
Not too arduous to stop and do a sunrise or sunset.
Sure.
Definitely two of my favorite times of the day. Send through your one-word tweet about how this makes you feel. And I'll just give you a moment to absorb it in silence. magnificent. Deep breaths and moments like that are very special. Reflecting on the moment. Ladybird, your one-word tweet is peaceful. I can't agree with you more. It's one of the things I used to do all the time with guests, and also especially with students when I was training them, is we'd go do a sundowner somewhere and just park people off, separated from each other, and just say, just be quiet. Half an hour if possible. Some people can then do 5-10 minutes. Amazing what that can do for the soul. I've done 4 10-day silent retreats, so a couple of minutes, 10 minutes is rather easy. But very good. Valeria, you say nostalgic. What does it make you, what does it remind you of? Every day we watch the sunrise and set, and it's always slightly different. Colors, beautiful orange we had there. But now the sun is set, let's pop on down to the Djuma Den and see if anyone's home, or if they are all trying to gather around at the base of Tandi's meal, trying to pick up on some scraps. Tandi is in the tree. Let's go watch her enjoy her dinner.
Oh, it's just hot at the moment around Tandi's meal, although she's behind the termite mound. This was the only place that I could find that had a view of Tandi while she snacks. She's tucking into the last bit of her impala. I would say that by tomorrow it's going to be gone, and so will Tandi, off in her mysterious ways. We have to get lucky to see this cat, really. Difficult to track, unpredictable. It really is about luck. It's quite an appetizing sound, isn't it? Crunch, crunch, crunch. She's eaten all the nice bits now. Now she's actually got to work for the bits of meat that she's getting to, which means plucking away fur, finding the slight meaty bits, muscly bits. She's probably not... Oh, hello, Heart. What have you got to say for yourself, madam? Hello. Came out of nowhere. Do you have babies by any chance? We were talking about you this morning and wondering if you wouldn't mind showing us your undercarriage. Would be nice to have a look. Look, she hasn't eaten. She didn't get any of that waterbuck, really. Nipples? Nipples? No nipples? I don't see nipples. No, I think we would see if she'd had cubs. I'll stick my head out the side of the car and have a look. Your leg's in the way. Could you please move your leg? Such a perfect little rectangular piece cut out of her ear there. Just the tip. It's almost exact. I haven't seen Heart in a while. So Heart is a lower ranked individual of this clan. And so we don't see her as often, but she should have had cubs around about now. It doesn't look like she does. No, she definitely doesn't. I just got a clear view of her undercarriage. Now, apparently quite a few of you wondering if there are ants on the impala, and yes, there are. There are definitely ants crawling all over the impala's legs and probably all over the meat as well. And while the thought of something like that is probably revolting to you or I, it's not going to bother her at all, really. They might add a little bit of extra protein. You never know. Might be a nice little additional snack. They're probably crawling in her fur and irritating her a little bit. Yes, I think there's probably ants crawling all over her legs. Oh, bits of fluff flying off. Has she got ants on her legs? Can't see any. They might tuck away into her fur and bite her a few times, which might be a bit irritating. but it's definitely not going to put her off her meal. She's probably put her, she's put her impala over an ant's nest, and they've discovered it, and they are making use of it as well. And this is the part where one doesn't want to park underneath a leopard kill, although I think Tanya's a little bit too expert to make a mistake. Look at that bird's nest there. Isn't that interesting? I wonder, barbet or woodpecker? I'm going with barbet, I think. The roller could also potentially live there as well. Sorry, that was totally off topic. It's just because it caught my eye while we were looking at the ant's nest. Now, while Tundi tucks in, Hart has moved off, but we have a question about whether or not I have ever seen a skinny hyena. And the answer is very seldom. They do well for themselves, and they... Sorry, Bumblebee, I forgot your name there. So that was Bumblebee's question. Very seldom. I think they're very clever. And I do think that they are eating more than, or hunting more than we will ever know. Unfortunately, I think a drone would probably be the only way we could figure out exactly how much the hyenas are hunting. How one would do that and the logistics of that, I do not know. It's not like following hunting hyenas in the Mara. It's impossible. They're definitely hunting. They're not living off leopards' scraps or lions' scraps. It's just not physically possible for the 20-odd hyenas of the Djuma clan to be fat and well-fed all the time. It's not possible. They're catching their own food. We just don't see it happening. Yeah, nice girl. Taking a breather. Of course, taking a breather with her head behind the branch, but there's nothing I can do about that. I'm not getting any closer. You know, it's amazing when she walked past me. No matter how many times Tundi does that little slide by, I'll never get over how small she is. Gee, she is tiny. Are we going down? Oh, she's going to go down the other side, I think. It's just not a comfortable way down this way. I wonder what she's thinking. Do you think wild animals ever get nostalgic in the way we do? I don't. Oh, goodness. Beautiful. Thank you very much, girl. Stunning. Now, while she settles in to a comfortable place to have a little snooze, let's go across to Steve, who has a different type of animal with something to eat.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, we've got a male battalier who's busy chewing on something quite tough and stringy. It looked like it was struggling to swallow a little piece before, but this is one of the characteristic features that defines a raptor, that strong hook-like beak and the ability to hold the prey or the meat or whatever it is with the foot. The talons, they also have the ability to kill with those talons as well as with the beak. But the ability to, oh, there we go. Let's see if it's going to swallow. Watch this. Oopsie. It already did that and then regurgitated again. Looked like it was really struggling to get that in. Well done. I've seen a battalier pick up an entire puff adder on the road that I think got hit by a car, and I watched it swallow the entire puff adder. It must have come back to a branch like this to then feed on it, but the entire snake went in, which I find incredible. How do you do that? How do you put an entire... Whoopsie, there we go. That's how you do it. You make some space. You make some space. So we're very close to the nest. Oh, there we go. To the nests. Oh, that was the female. How did I get that wrong? Must have been the light. You noticed as it flew off, the underwing was very, very white with a very thin black trailing edge. And I thought initially it was a female, but she's got a very dirty skirt. Then I didn't notice her skirt. Well, very good. We are right next to the area where I had that awesome honey badger kill last year of the monitor lizard. It happened right here. Where are we? Yeah. Right here. Honey badger was in that tree over there and chased the monitor lizard down. It was very special. VM the wildebeest's last drive. Best honey badger sighting of my life. Okay, so the battalias are regarded as scavengers, so they are also part of the snake eagle family, so they will eat snakes and small birds, but it's not uncommon to find them feeding on carrion. Carrion is essentially carcasses or rotten meat, roadkill, whatever it might be. Very good eyesight. The first of the large raptors to be flying in the morning, and they are the first ones to find kills and carcasses. So we're just coming back in from Chitwa. There was no one at the hyena den. Probably if we wait long enough. But we don't want to sit outside because the cubs are probably inside, but there's no adult nearby. So we popped in, no one home, so we're going to move along. Come back in, we're heading on this road, which is going to take us back sort of north and east. And last night when the show closed, 2 lioness came in on this road. So I'm just going to see if maybe we're going to have some luck and maybe bump into them. What I'm hearing is that the rest of the Djuma Pride, I haven't heard numbers yet, have been located on or are being tracked on Torchwood itself. So you're all talking about that honey badger sighting again. It was very, very cool. And if those of you out there didn't see it, honey badger was ferreting around with its tail up, getting very excited, and then it put its nose into this bush and started doing tug of war, what I thought initially was a snake, but then it turned out to be a monitor lizard, big monitor lizard, that it ran away from the honey badger and then went up this very sort of shortish, or probably about a 2.5 meter high stump, and then went up the stump and then flew off into this buffalo thorn. And buffalo thorn is a very inaccessible plant. The honey badger went up the stump and thought, it's fine, jumped down, just threw itself on the floor without any concern of its body parts. And then I told everybody, watch, it's going to figure this out. And it ran around in circles with its tail up, and it went up one tree, eventually went up the tree it originally went up, and kind of just sort of leopard crawled through the buffalo thorn. The monitor lizard decided this is time to book it out the tree and threw itself out. The honey badger just threw itself out the tree. No regard for its body. Landing, we didn't even see it. We just heard thump as it then took off. And we saw the monitor lizard flying, absolutely 4 legs just moving like this. And the honey badger, just with its loping gait, ran after and covered the distance quite quickly to grab it behind the head. And then took an hour and a half to eat the top of its face and jaw. It was quite something to behold, I must tell you. Okay, well, hopefully we're going to find you another cat today. It would be wonderful if we can, or maybe we find you the honey badger. But while we move along in this road, let's go back to now the snoozing Tundi.
A honeywood badger would be very cool, Steve. I hope you managed to find one as well. Tundi's now sleeping off her belly full of impala. Certainly not giving away whether or not she's pregnant or not. Keeping it secret. The leopard look so phenomenally peaceful, spread across a branch like that. Safari Lover wants to know if leopards eat the fur and everything else and every other part of the carcass. And no, generally not. They will pluck out as much of the fur as they possibly can using their incisors, and there's certain parts of the carcass that they won't eat. It depends upon the size of the animal. I mean, a scrub hare or a small antelope, they'll often eat almost all of it and consume as much of it as they can so that they don't waste anything, and that includes the skin and the hair and the hooves. If it is a large antelope like an impala, they'll usually leave the legs, the bottom part of the legs, which are basically just skin and sinew. they'll eat as much as they can around that, and they'll leave the rest. Now, it depends on the size of the kill, and it depends upon exactly how hungry they are. But their digestive systems are not built to cope with hair or with large portions of bone. They can eat bits of bone, but not huge amounts and not big pieces or big chunks. And you'll often find, obviously it would be impossible for a leopard to feed off any kind of a carcass. Even the most meticulous leopard in the world would not be able to consume the flesh without at least eating a little bit of hair. So you'll always find fur in leopard scat. It just comes out the other side. Sometimes you find they vomit it up, but a lot of the time it just comes out in their scat. And she's actually plucked this impala. You can't really see it, but there's patches of fur down underneath it. It's actually quite funny occasionally if you can put aside the, if you're very sensitive to dead animals, then perhaps it's less fun. But it's interesting to watch them pluck. Atlanta Jules wants to know if she will drop it for the hyena when she's done with it. And unfortunately, no such consideration exists out here. So even if she doesn't want any more of it, she's definitely not going to give it to the hyena. She might drop it by mistake, because as it gets less and less, or as she eats more of the carcass and as there's less meat on it, it'll get harder and harder to balance around. And most of the time, that's when the carcasses fall out of the trees. But if she decides to abandon it now, she is definitely not going to leave it for any hyena. She'll leave it up the tree. And what will usually happen at that point is that something like a batalier or a tawny eagle will find it usually, and they will feed on it and often dislodge it. And then the hyena gets it anyway. But it really is circumstantial. But there's no consideration. She won't think to herself, gee, I don't want this, and that hyena does, let me give it to him or her. There's none of that. That thought process doesn't happen. She has absolutely no investment in the well-being of a hyena. Why would she? They're competition, purely and simply. They're not her friends. They're not companions. There's no point in romanticizing it. She doesn't really want no predator wants other predators to survive, basically. It's a bit of a rough way of putting it, but that is essentially it. Chris wants to know if there's a purpose for the black spots on the back of her mouth. I'm assuming you're talking about at the corners of her mouth, where they join. I don't know. I have never really looked at the darkness of their mouths around there. I think it's just a anatomical thing, where the corner of the mouth meets the cheek. If I had to go into looking for a purpose for something, I might say that it might, highlight certain forms of visual communication. But honestly, I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think sometimes we look for purpose for things when that's just happens to be how they've come to be. So no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's a purpose behind that. I think it's just anatomical. Are you looking for me? Ava, she's back at the Scotia on the corner there of Weaver's Nest, Pangan Track. Cool. Oh, she's making me feel sleepy now. End of a long, hard day. Yes, she's had her dinner. Such a nice way to spend an evening. It's warm. It's a hint of summer in the air again. We've got a leopard in a tree. Pete wants to know if a leopard will ever jump from a high branch off the tree, and the answer to that is potentially. It's unusual for them to do so, though. They can hurt themselves, especially a big male leopard. I mean, you know, it's basic physics. There's only so much pressure that a leopard joints can take. If an 80-kilogram leopard jumps off a, let's say, a 5, 6, in this case, probably closer on 10-meter drop, it's really going to hurt. So yes, they can. They do. They have been recorded. I've never seen it jumping out of trees to catch prey as well. But they're not likely to do that. And it won't be from too high. Where she is, as an example, is too high. Unless she fell out for some reason, maybe in a fight with another leopard. It would hurt her. Even if she landed on her feet. If there was any reason for her to launch herself off there, she'd probably rather just climb up higher. No. I mean, they're amazing animals, but they're not superhuman or superheroes. And they're not indestructible. Don't know what word came out of my mouth there. Alright, we're going to settle in, spend the rest of the evening here. In the meantime, let's go across and see whether Steve has had any luck with his spotlight.
Thanks, Jamie. I love that. The hint of summer. There's definitely a hint of summer. Now, I brought a warm jacket with me, but I don't think it's going to be needed. I'm in my shorts and sandals this evening. Very nice weather. Had a lie-in this morning and woke up and it was very warm. The wind had changed. Seb arrived back from game drive with a hot water bottle, so it was definitely colder this morning. Last night was fresh, but it has turned. So this drying out is a natural sort of occurrence in August. It's what actually dries out the vegetation, what can lead to the drastic fires that are commonplace just before spring rains. Vegetation dries out. The animals struggle a bit more with the dryness. Predators do much better this time of year. And also these warm winds can make firefighting quite something else. Patrick, most certainly we are in a malaria area, and there were actually quite a few cases of malaria last year. Jamie actually had malaria earlier this year or end of last year. I'm not actually sure when. It was this year, February. Jamie was down. They thought I might have had malaria when I went to Kenya after being here. So definitely we are in a malaria area. We do have more and more cases in Hoedspruit each year. After 10 years ago, Hoedspruit was not a malaria area at all, but it's the movement of many people from the north along the Kruger Park area, from Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Truck drivers, they bring it with them as well. But there is prevalence of malaria around. But generally, when you're in low density area of people, the chances of you getting it are decreased. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but when you live with a whole lot of people, much more chance of you getting it, because the malaria virus transferred from the mosquito is quite short-lived in the blood of the mosquito. So what I've been told is, I believe the mosquito needs to bite somebody with malaria and then bite you within 2 hours. So if there's no one near you, then you're going to get bitten by a mosquito that doesn't have malaria inside of it, so you should be fine. But if there's a lot of people around, very good chance you might contract. They actually gave out a malaria warning earlier this year, and then they came and did a lot of mosquito insect spraying. They used to do that at the camps all the time, but I think that cases of malaria have increased in the last few years. Nancy, there's not really a vaccine for malaria. When you get malaria, you just have to start taking the what is also the prophylaxis, which I can't give you the exact names now, but the prophylaxis of malaria is something that people will come on safari with. There's many different brands that you can take. Malarone, some derivatives of that as well. There's a couple other brands as well. I've never Malarium is one that gives you crazy nightmares. Don't tell anybody I told you that. Okay, sorry, I'll just turn that Game & Dry radio off. So it's not really a vaccine, because a vaccine makes you immune. You can't really become immune, I don't think, to malaria. You can take tablets that can prevent you from contracting it, but what that often does is it actually masks the symptoms. So you don't feel the malaria symptoms until you've actually really got full-blown malaria. So symptoms are very similar to cold and flu. The one thing that you do is you get quite light sensitive, and the one thing to bear in mind is you suddenly feel a lot better. Now, have you ever had a really bad cold and flu, really bad fever, and then suddenly the next moment you feel fine again? Doesn't happen. But if that does happen to you and you've been in a malaria area, you should definitely go and see somebody. And all they're going to do is they're going to put you on the prophylaxis. Unless you've gotten too far, then they'll take you to hospital and actually put you on a drip with the right sort of medication. So the reality is that the people who die from malaria are the ones who don't seek medical attention soon enough. And there's a lot of people in Africa who fall ill from malaria. They're kilometers from hospital, weeks maybe. And so if they do fall ill, they just think home remedies are going to do it, and they can get to that stage when it kills them. So it's one of the reasons why malaria kills so many people in Africa, is the lack of proper medical care. But if you are in a camp, or you come to Africa, and there's a very slim chance of you getting very, very badly ill, because you just look at the symptoms, go to the doctor, and everything should be fine. Blood tests can cure it up very, very quickly. Okay, well, we're going to get out of the drainage and slowly make our way home, and let's go back over to, hopefully not the sleeping Tundi.
Alright, so while Steve heads on home, I'll finish off the malaria story by saying that from when I felt ill to being diagnosed and given treatment for malaria was probably in the space of 4 or 5 hours. As a result, I was sick for only 2 days, but I can tell you that for a month afterwards it was debilitating, the extent to which I felt the fatigue. And I can imagine for those who don't have easy access to treatment, it is a very, very scary thing indeed. It was scary. There were times when it felt really scary, when your temperature skyrockets and you know you're being treated. Oof, it must be terrifying without having that option. Fortunately, it's not something that Tundi needs to worry about. She's not going to contract malaria no matter what. Certain animals can, but they are not nearly in as much trouble as we are. The particular type of Plasmodium are kind of evolved to reproduce and have their reproductive cycle within human beings and our structure. Fast asleep. She could not be more fast asleep if she tried. She looks so thoroughly peaceful and comfortable. She's going to get down shortly, and I'll tell you why, because this wind is blowing, and now it's cold. It was warm when she got up there. It's now really quite chilly, and the wind is starting to blow, so I can imagine that if it's blowing down here, then up there it's particularly uncomfortable. I imagine that by the time we return tomorrow morning, she is going to be gone. She will have wandered off somewhere else. I did think that perhaps there was a chance Hosanna might have come and found us here, but I suppose that carcass is fresh, there's no smell to it, there's nothing to really necessarily bring him here. And unfortunately there's no more water at Treehouse Dam, so there's even less reason for him to start wandering down in this direction. So, I'm not going to complain. Spending an afternoon with Tundi was exactly what the doctor ordered. After a couple of quite quiet, frustrating drives, today's been lovely. Oh, do you have a foot twitch? On that note, I think Tundi's dancing in her dreams. It is time for us to bid you all farewell. because it is the end of the sunset safari. So I hope that wherever you happen to be, you enjoyed yourself. Thank you for your questions and your comments. We'll see you in a few short hours. For the rest of you, I hope you tap dance your way through your dreams as well.